Hello gainers, Ralphie here on location with some fitter philosophy, sharing some of my philosophy and the accompanying fitness with you so as that you may be fitter in your philosophy, because philosophy isn't something that we simply pick up at school from Greek philosophers who are long since gone. It's something that we adapt and personalise and include in our own lives. I'm getting ahead of myself here. For the simple reason, we want to make the most of the time and space we have in this life to prepare ourselves for the next. Because science is delving deep into the final frontiers of human existence and finding stuff beyond, whether it be resuscitation or hypnosis-induced psychology, or whether it be regressing people who have near-death experiences and where they can articulate previous lives in remarkable detail, including evidence which is only available to academics. Right. As you can imagine, there are folk involved in the wider religious community who are not particularly pleased about this, because it's a little bit of a scientific encroachment on their territory. Anyway, I'm not going to digress any further with that little introduction. I'm going to introduce you to Ramsey Harbour. This is somewhere relatively near where I live in the Isle of Man, and it's a beautiful spot. I'd love to describe the smell of the place to you. In fact, I will. First and foremost, the air is clean, pollution-free, it's sweet, it's fresh, it's cool, it's dry. Well, for a coastal resort area, it's dry. There is the smell of ozone, seaweed, a mild smell of diesel oil from the boats. You always get that with boats. And the smell of freshly mown grass. Absolutely delightful. And in my last video on a very different location during the Isle of Man TT races, I mentioned risk. And I mentioned it in the context of those who take risks over and above what normal people would take. In other words, these road racing motorcyclists who can take considerable risks for the reason they want to, they're motivated, they're prepared for it, and they actually have the talent and the ability. And one of the components is having this experience to fine-tune what talent they have in order to maximise the benefits. And I think that there's something that we can all learn from this. And what I'd like to mention primarily in this video is the flip side of risk, and that is the hazards of not taking risks. And there are plenty of people, you probably know some, who go through life and who are risk averse. And because they don't take risks and they avoid risks, they do not have the practice of fine-tuning risk into their lives, and therefore they miss opportunities, they miss adventures, they miss pushing the boundaries and getting to know themselves better as a result of taking modest, and I mean, we're not talking anything spectacular here, whoops, I bashed my tripod off some furniture at the side of the pavement there. We're all good. So these people, and you probably know at least one or two of these folk, they're not really up to taking risk. It's a personal choice. But the more we, particularly with young developing children, the more they're allowed to play, allowed to explore their own boundaries and parameters, the more they're allowed to, within reason, children allowed to take risk, the more they can find their own footing and get their own balance and discover their own personal gravity. And we're all children. We may become adults over time, but as you and I are very much aware, most adults are actually children in a larger body. And I'm not meaning that judgmentally or critically, I'm being objective about it. And there's no shame in it. The skill is to be someone who learns from experience, who grows from experience, because that ultimately is the purpose of life. It's a profound question. What is the purpose of life? And many academics and great minds have thought long and hard about it, and quite a number of them have missed what is hidden in plain sight, and that is, every simple question deserves a simple answer. And then you examine the answer in more detail. So, what is the purpose of life? To experience it. That is the purpose of life. Just to experience it. And part of that experience is exploring our boundaries, the fences that we build around ourselves and are built for us by the societies in which we're brought up, and pushing these boundaries, shaking the fence, challenging these boundaries, because that's when we personally grow. And when we personally grow, inevitably through morphic resonance, society grows around us, because it has no choice but to do so through our individual influence as part of a group collective. Because after all, are we not humanoids? Very interesting species, routinely underestimating its own primitive nature and routinely underestimating its own potential. I'm Ralphie. I hope you've enjoyed some Fit to Philosophy on this beautiful, I'm just looking at the reflection in my camera lens and my viewer, this beautiful little brief coastal walk with the, let me introduce this. This is valerian. Sorry. Yes, valerian. Valerian grows in walls, and when you make tea with these leaves, you have a wonderful night's sleep. It is a very useful medicinal plant. Good thing to know. I'm Ralphie, hope you've enjoyed this. Pop back again for some more Fit to Philosophy, because there will be another video on its way shortly. Bye bye.